Husband left me for his high school sweetheart. Now he's back begging for help because she has one twisted demand. He claims only I can meet it. But little does he know that I was going to be turning the table with a single phone call to her father. Hi everyone, I'm Cassie, 30 female, and I recently lost everything, which ended up with me doing something that I don't want anyone to know. All the names are fake to protect our identities. Let me take you back to when it all started. 5 years ago, I met my husband Roderick, 32 male, in a crowded club. It was totally unexpected, but from the moment we started talking, it felt like we were meant to be together. At the time, Roderick was really focused on his job as a bag manager, and I was busy working on my small business selling handmade crafts. Even though our careers were different, we just clicked. We shared the same ideas about life and what we wanted for our future. Our friendship grew naturally, and soon it was clear there was something more between us. 3 years ago, Roderick and I decided to make it official. We didn't want a huge fancy wedding, so we got married in a simple courthouse ceremony. It was just us, and it felt perfect. Since then, we've been learning how to be a married couple. It was amazing, but also challenging at times. Roderick worked long hours as a bank manager, making tough decisions all day. I worked for myself, designing and making things to sell in my small business. Sometimes our different work styles caused a little friction, but mostly it was amazing how well we fit together. Roderick was good at planning and organizing, which helped me stay on track with my sometimes messy creative process. I loved that I could help him relax and find ways to spark his own creativity outside of work. Together, we figured out how to build a life we both loved, finding the right balance between work and home and making time for our dreams. Even though we were both busy, we always made time for our relationship. We went on adventures together, exploring new places, and we also loved quiet nights at home, just relaxing with each other. The more we were together, the stronger our connection became. We learned how important it is to talk honestly with each other, even about hard things. We figured out ways to work through problems together and always celebrated each other's successes. Our love became a safe space where we could always find comfort and support. Over time, things changed in good ways. Roderick's career took off. He loved facing new challenges and working hard. My business also grew, and I couldn't have done it without Roderick's help. But more important than our jobs was what we shared: being kind, being honest, and always wanting the best for each other. Together, we knew we could handle whatever life threw at us. No matter what happened, we always had each other to lean on. Last year was tough for me. I've always loved my small business, making and selling handmade crafts, but things changed. Sales started going down and I couldn't figure out why. Eventually, I had to make the heartbreaking decision to close my actual shop. It was devastating. I tried to switch my focus to selling online, but even there, things weren't getting better. Sales stayed slow. The stress was awful. I worried constantly about money and whether all the work I'd put in was just going to disappear. I'd never felt so discouraged about my work. There were times when I thought about giving up completely, but then I remember how much I love designing and creating things. I knew I wasn't ready to quit, but I also knew something big needed to change. Things were so tough that I knew I had to find another way to make money. I needed to be able to help support myself and my husband. Then, out of the blue, I heard about a part-time job opening up at a local high school, teaching art. It wasn't exactly what I've been doing, but I love art, and I was excited about the chance to share that with students. Becoming a teacher was definitely a big adjustment. I had to learn how to write lesson plans, manage a classroom, and figure out the best way to help kids with different needs. But even with the challenges, I found it incredibly rewarding. Every day was a chance to be creative and to watch my students learn and grow. It felt amazing to make a difference like that. Even though I loved teaching, it wasn't easy. Finding a balance between the classroom and running my online store was incredibly tough. Some days, I was so exhausted, trying to do a good job with my students and also keep up with my business. Plus, switching from running my own business to being a teacher meant a lot to learn. I had to figure out the school's rules and systems, write lesson plans, and find ways to make learning fun and interesting for my students. It was overwhelming at times, and there were days I wasn't even sure I was doing a good job. One day, it hit me hard. I was so focused on my work problems that I was completely ignoring the most important part of my life, my marriage. All the stress and worry had pushed me and Roderick apart without me even realizing it. We weren't fighting or anything like that. The worst part was the silence that grew between us. Our conversations turned into small talk, never going deeper. It felt like we were roommates instead of husband and wife. The loneliness was awful. Sometimes the silence would be so loud, and I'd feel just lost and empty. It was like all the joy and connection we used to share had just disappeared. It was a terrible feeling. I'll never forget one night at dinner. The silence between us was unbearable. I tried to start a conversation, to reach out to Roderick, but he barely responded and wouldn't even look me in the eye. That's when I knew how bad things had gotten. Our marriage was falling apart because we weren't talking or connecting anymore. I desperately wanted to find the love and closeness we used to share, the kind of love that helps you get through hard times. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't figure out how to fix things. It was like we were lost in a storm, and I didn't know which way to turn. Feeling alone and hopeless made even the good moments feel sad. I didn't know what to do. Things were bad for Roderick too, but he hid his feelings and didn't talk about them. We both built walls around ourselves, and it seemed impossible to get through them. We felt trapped and alone, and our marriage was falling apart. I couldn't stop wondering how things got so awful. How did we let our love fade away? I didn't have answers, just a lot of sadness and regret about the things we never said and the chances we missed. But even though everything felt hopeless, a tiny part of me still believed things could be better. I decided I wasn't ready to give up on us. I knew it would be hard, but I had to find a way to be honest with Roderick and break down the walls between us. Only then could we start to rebuild our love and find the way back to each other. The day my world fell apart started out totally normal, or so I thought. I was exhausted after teaching all day and just wanted to come home and relax. But the minute I walked through the door, I could tell something was wrong. Roderick was sitting in the living room, and he looked so serious. The air felt heavy, and I immediately got a bad feeling. He took a deep breath and said, "We need to talk." My heart started pounding. I tried to stay calm as I asked, "What's wrong?" What he said was the worst thing I could ever imagine. He told me he was leaving me, and not just leaving me for someone else. Her name was Rebecca, 32 female, his high school sweetheart. Just hearing that name again brought back a rush of memories and hurt feelings. His words hit me like a truck. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I felt like my whole world was crashing down around me. I begged him to explain, my voice shaking, tears running down my face. "Why are you doing this to me?" I just wanted to understand, but I knew there wasn't any answer that would make it hurt less. Roderick seemed so cold and distant. He didn't even look sorry. "I don't love you anymore," he said. Each word felt like a punch in the stomach. It was the absolute worst thing anyone's ever said to me. I couldn't accept what was happening. Desperately, I told him, "Things have been hard lately, but we can get through this together." My voice was shaking, because more than anything, I wanted our marriage to have a chance. But he didn't care. He wouldn't even look me in the eye. The worst part was that he'd already decided to leave. His suitcase was packed and sitting in the car. It was like a punch in the gut. Seeing that suitcase made me realize this was real. It was absolutely crushing. As he walked away, I felt this rush of desperation. "Please don't go," I begged, my voice breaking. I reached out to him, but it was useless. I watched him leave, and it felt like a part of me was leaving too. He didn't even turn around to say goodbye. At that moment, I felt so alone. The house felt empty and cold. The days after Roderick left were the worst of my life. Every minute felt like a million years, and the pain in my heart was unbearable. Then, the divorce papers came in. Seeing our marriage end on a paper like that made everything feel so real and final. It was devastating. I couldn't get out of bed. I felt completely hopeless and alone, too sad to eat or even take care of myself. Every part of me just wanted to give up. When I was at my lowest point, my best friend Alicia was there for me. She never left my side and was always ready to listen. Thanks to her, I didn't feel completely alone. She helped me get through those first terrible weeks, and I started to believe I could make it through this awful time. Little by little, we built a new kind of friendship, stronger than ever before. Alicia's kindness and support meant the world to me. She listened to me cry, helped me figure out how to take care of myself again, and always reminded me that things would get better, even if I couldn't imagine it at the time. Just when I thought I might have a quiet moment for myself, my phone rang. It was Roderick. My heart started pounding. I didn't want to hear his voice. I couldn't even think about him without feeling sick and betrayed. But I answered. His voice, the voice I used to love, now just made me feel angry and upset. I was so confused. Why was he calling now after everything he did? Why did he want to see me? The only thing I wanted was for him to leave me alone. I couldn't bring myself to talk to Roderick. I just said no and hung up. I wanted to scream at him, but I also wanted to hide. But he wouldn't stop calling. My phone rang over and over again. Each ring made me feel even more anxious and on the edge. It was like all this sadness and anger was building up inside me, ready to explode. Finally, I blocked his number. I just wanted the ringing to stop. But even though I couldn't hear him anymore, I couldn't get him out of my head. The thought of him trying to reach me wouldn't leave me alone. Just as I started to feel a little calmer, my doorbell rang. It was Roderick. I was so angry seeing him there. How dare he just show up at my house after what he did? I didn't want him inside. I didn't want him anywhere near me. I stood in the doorway, blocking his way, and told him to leave. I barely kept myself from yelling at him, but I made it clear I wouldn't let him in, and I meant it. Go away, I told Roderick, or I'm calling the police. I hated that he forced me to threaten him, but I couldn't imagine what else to do. He begged me to listen. Just 5 minutes, he said, and then I'll go. Against my better judgment, I opened the door just a crack, but didn't let him inside. Whatever you have to say it now, I told him. He looked embarrassed and a little scared. I need your help, he said. Then he told me he'd asked Rebecca to marry him. I was speechless. Then he said the craziest thing. Rebecca's super superstitious, and she thinks I'm cursed because I left you. She's convinced you put a curse on her. So Roderick wants me to bless their wedding and get rid of the curse. I almost laughed. Are you serious? I asked him. First of all, I didn't curse your girlfriend. And second, even if I could, why would I help you after the way you treated me? He said I should just pretend, even just call her and tell her I'd take the curse away. I couldn't believe he was asking me to do this. You must be joking, I said. The way he was begging was unbelievable. He was desperate to get back on Rebecca's good side, and he honestly thought I would play along. But there was no way. I told him no, and I slammed the door. It felt good to stand up to him like that. Finally, I was finding my strength again. And no matter how much he begged or pleaded, I wasn't letting him back into my life. He may have wanted to break my peace, but I was starting to build a new life for myself. A life without him. Still, part of me couldn't help but be curious. I wanted to know what was really going on. I started to realize that everything that happened, Roderick leaving me, even this crazy stuff with Rebecca, was somehow connected. I knew now that I wouldn't be able to really move on until I figured it all out. The next day, I went out to meet some of my girlfriends for lunch. One of them is married to a friend of Roderick's. She told me that Roderick is completely miserable and running around trying to do everything Rebecca tells him to do. Apparently, Rebecca is about to inherit tons of money from her super rich dad, William, 67 male. He's in his 60s and owns a bunch of department stores and all kinds of property. Hearing this news made me sick. All this time I'd been trying to forget about Roderick and move on with my life. Now I couldn't stop wondering about him. My friend told me how he was basically Rebecca's slave, doing whatever she said. It was hard to picture the strong, independent man I used to be married to acting that way. It made me angry at him for being so weak, but I felt bad for him too. How could he let himself be used this way? All because of money. The more I thought about it, the more everything made sense. It was never really about love for Roderick. He was only thinking about how much money marrying Rebecca could get him. It made me so angry, and it made me feel used and betrayed. Suddenly, I was furious. How could Roderick do this to me? We were married. He promised to love and cherish me, and this is how he repays me? Just throws everything away because he sees a chance to get rich? I couldn't believe how selfish and heartless he was being. Just thinking about it made me want to scream. But then I started to get an idea. If Roderick thought he could lie his way into Rebecca's family and get a piece of her fortune, he was in for a surprise. I wasn't going to let him get away with it so easily. I decided it was time to do something about it. Now that I knew what Roderick was up to, I was determined to stop him. I knew I had to expose him for the liar and manipulator he really was. I needed to warn Rebecca and her family before it was too late. My first step was to find a way to speak to Rebecca's father, William. Since he and Roderick both ran in the same wealthy social circles, it wasn't too hard to find out how to get in touch with him. Then I just had to figure out what I was going to say. Taking a deep breath, I dialed his number. My heart was racing as the phone rang. I was so nervous, but I knew what I had to do. When William answered, I took a deep breath and said, "Hi, I'm Roderick's ex-wife. I need to talk to you about your daughter Rebecca." He sounded surprised and a little annoyed. "I don't have time for this," he said. "Roderick and Rebecca are getting married. Stay out of it. Please just listen," I begged. "Roderick doesn't love Rebecca. He just wants her money. You have to protect her." William laughed. "This is ridiculous," he said, but I wouldn't give up. "You don't have to believe me," I said, "but before you let them get married, think about this. Roderick and I were happily married for years. Then my business failed, and suddenly he left me. If he really loves Rebecca, why would he do that?" I told him to do a little investigating and see the truth for himself. At first, William was quiet. I wasn't sure if he believed me or even cared what I had to say. I felt a little bit discouraged, but I kept talking. I told him about how we were happy until I didn't have money. Finally, William spoke again. His voice sounded tired and a little sad. "Thank you," he said. "I'll look into this." He didn't promise to break them up or anything like that, but his words made me hopeful. Maybe I had made a difference. Maybe I had opened William's eyes to the truth about Roderick. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but at least I'd done everything I could. After that, he didn't say much, just hung up. Hanging up the phone, a wave of relief washed over me. Even though I was heartbroken, taking action felt good. I wasn't going to let Roderick walk all over me. I might not be able to fix our marriage, but at least I could warn Rebecca. Weeks passed, and I was starting to give up hope that anything would change. Then one day, my friend called with incredible news. Rebecca dumped Roderick. I couldn't stop smiling. I still felt sad about everything that happened, but it also felt like this huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. Maybe my warning made a difference, maybe not. But either way, Roderick finally got a taste of what he did to me. Apparently, William took my warning seriously. He made Roderick sign a prenup before he would let him marry Rebecca. It basically said that Roderick wouldn't get anything if he and Rebecca ever divorced. Not a house, not a car, and definitely not any of Rebecca's inheritance. There was even a clause in there about cheating. If Roderick wasn't faithful, Rebecca could sue him for a huge amount of money. There were all sorts of rules that would make his life miserable. Anyone could tell he wasn't marrying Rebecca for love anymore, just for money. Roderick was furious. That's when Rebecca saw his true colors. He didn't care about her. He just cared about her money. He started yelling and saying awful things to her. That was it for Rebecca. She finally realized what kind of person he really was, and she dumped him on the spot. After their big fight, Rebecca decided to call it quits on their engagement, basically kicking Roderick to the curb. And you know what? Even though Roderick didn't realize how much I had to do with our breakup, I felt pretty good about it. It was like getting back a piece of myself that I thought I had lost when he betrayed me. Taking down my ex like that made me feel like I had some power back in my life, you know. Even though our relationship went up in flames, I realized I was stronger than I thought. Those scars might still be there from our messed up love story, but they're also a reminder of how tough I am. It's like my own little victory dance, showing me that I can handle whatever life throws my way. And you know what? It's a good feeling to know that justice was served, even if Roderick doesn't see it that way. At the end of the day, I'm the one who came out on top, and that's all that really matters. Thank you all for listening to me vent. I cannot tell this story to anyone in my life, but it felt good to share it with you all. Hi everyone, my ex found this thread, and then he bombarded me with phone calls and texts calling me all kinds of horrible things you can imagine. It was a total nightmare. It just reminded me of how nasty and vindictive he can be. I finally had to block his number just to get some peace, but even when I couldn't hear him anymore, I couldn't shake the feeling he was still out there plotting his revenge. And then it got even worse. He showed up at my house. He was totally drunk, screaming and threatening me. I was terrified beyond belief, like I'd never felt before. It was like my instincts kicked into overdrive, telling me to do whatever it takes to stay safe from the danger lurking outside my door. With trembling hands, I grabbed my phone and called 911, my voice shaky as I begged for help. Even though everything was a blur of chaos, one thing was crystal clear. I wasn't going to let him make me a victim of his messed up games. When the cops showed up, they wasted no time in cuffing him and hauling him away. And while I felt a wave of relief wash over me, I knew the fight wasn't over yet. Things went downhill from there. I immediately got a restraining order to try and keep my ex away from me. Of course he didn't listen. What a surprise, right? He still lurked around, and I'm sure he was fined a bunch of times for violating it. It honestly made me so angry that I even had to deal with this. I was trying to move on and be happy, and he was still making my life miserable. But I wasn't going to let him ruin my life. Thankfully, my friends had my back through everything. They were amazing, and I knew deep down that I was going to be okay. He could rant and rave all he wanted, but I was stronger than he thought. I wasn't going to let him win. Even with the restraining order, I never really felt safe. I knew he was always out there, somewhere. It was like this creepy feeling that wouldn't go away, no matter how hard I tried to act tough. I was at a total loss. I couldn't just pick up and move away. My whole life is here, my home, my friends, the small business I'm working so hard to build. What was I supposed to do? I didn't want to be scared all the time, but honestly, I was terrified. Do you guys have any suggestions about what I should do? I don't even know what to do anymore. Okay, you won't believe what happened. Roderick's in jail, but not for anything he did to me. Apparently, his life has gone completely off the rails. I thought he'd hit rock bottom after I dumped him, but things kept getting worse. I heard he got really violent and destructive. He broke into Rebecca's house, stole her car, and crashed it into a store on purpose. Seriously, what is wrong with him? The whole thing was totally crazy, and now the cops finally caught up with him. Honestly, I don't know how to feel. It's a relief knowing he's locked up, but I also feel kinda bad for him. This isn't the person I used to love. What happened to him? Honestly, a tiny part of me is really glad he's in jail. He totally deserves whatever's coming his way, but the rest of me is just so messed up about the whole thing. Even with him locked up, I still have nightmares about everything he did to me. It's like those horrible memories will never leave me alone. It's scary to think about how easy it is for your entire life to fall apart. I always thought I was safe, that nothing bad would ever happen to me. And after everything with Roderick, I don't feel safe anymore. I thought his arrest would put an end to my fear, but it's made me realize that I'm probably going to be dealing with the emotional fallout of this for a long time. Now that he's in jail, I can't stop thinking about the whole thing. I'm mad at him, scared of him, relieved that he's locked up, and honestly, I kind of feel sorry for him too. Was he always this horrible person, or did something happen to him? What made him destroy his life like this? Even though I hate him for what he did to me, it's hard not to wonder what's going on inside his head. I'm not saying I want to talk to him or anything, but it's like I used to be married to this guy, and now I don't know who he is anymore. It's really messed up. It's complicated dealing with all these emotions, but I'm not going to let this destroy me. My friends have been amazing, and even with everything that's happened, I'm determined not to let it ruin my life. I have a lot of things to be happy about. My home, my business, the people who care about me. I know it's going to take time to heal completely, but I'm going to be okay. I refuse to let him win. Hey everyone, sorry I haven't been around in a while. Life has been total insanity. So you won't believe what happened with Roderick. I was completely sure he was going to prison, but instead, the judge gave him house arrest for 6 months and then 2 years of probation. Seriously, it's honestly kind of disappointing that he didn't get a harsher punishment, but I'm still relieved knowing he's stuck at home. At least I don't have to worry about running into him or him coming after me. I still get really anxious sometimes, and I don't want to say I'll ever feel totally safe again, but knowing he's locked up for a while is definitely a step in the right direction. The weirdest thing happened. So Rebecca's dad, you know, the super rich guy, sent me a huge gift basket with a really nice note. He thanked me for warning him about Roderick and protecting Rebecca. I was totally shocked. Honestly, I never thought he'd even know my name, much less send me a thank you. But it makes me feel really good. It's like even though this whole thing has been a nightmare, it's nice to know that at least something good came out of it. Rebecca's safe, and maybe I help with that. And even if nothing else comes from this, At least I got a really fancy gift basket. Things are starting to get a little bit better. My business is still kind of rough. It's been really hard to recover from everything that happened, but I refuse to give up on it. I'm working super hard to get it back on its feet. It's tough, and I get discouraged sometimes, but I love what I do. I'm determined to make it work. And you know what's been the best part? My friends have had my back through everything. I don't know what I would do without them. They're always there to help me, listen to me, and cheer me up. They make me feel strong even when things are tough. I'm so lucky to have them in my life. So to all of you who have stood by me through thick and thin, lending an ear, offering words of encouragement, and standing by my side through it all, I want to extend my deepest gratitude. Your support means more to me than words can express, and I'm truly grateful to have each and every one of you in my corner. That was a wrap up for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash that like button for me and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again, and we'll be seeing you in the next one.